Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. So I see still some people joining. Please feel free to keep your webcam on if you wish. I see quite many of you I know. Good to see you again here on this workshop on youth. Just waiting a couple of minutes if anyone else is joining, and then we'll make a start. Hi, Alan. Pete. Hendrik. So everyone, we'll start. Thank you for joining the best workshop of this conference, the workshop on youth, and we'll explore how we can be all stronger with youth, and have two very good case studies to share, and really keen to hear also from you your experience and knowledge, and share other ideas. I see some other joining, and I'm Federico Minozzi. I'm the managing director of EUROPARC. I guess most of you know me, and it's good to see many of you here. And Michaela, Misha with us from the communication department, waving from Regensburg.
Hello, everyone.
So I guess you're all now familiar with the Zoom, and we are quite zombies, but it's going well, and we're quite ready for this session. You're allowed to mute and mute yourself now. Please don't jump into the presentations, so just keep an eye on that. But really would like to make the workshop as interactive as possible, so hope to have some live discussion on the second part of it. Please keep your camera on if you wish. Nice to see faces, and makes things more live. Just on some practicalities, so we'll start with two presentations, and then we'll open for discussion, and keen to hear also some of your perspective and ideas. We will have to close by 4:30, so we have 2 hours. And we will have just after the final session closing with some great surprises. So please stay on for that. And you need to close. We'll need to close this session, and you need to join another link that you have on the platform. Please make use of the chat. So to ask questions, raise your point, but I hope there will be time and opportunity to intervene directly, as it's not that many of us. So happy to make this very constructive. And before, as a start, I would like to ask you a couple of questions. Hope you can see the pool. Unfortunately, the hosts and co-hosts cannot vote, so it's a bit false here. Everyone voted. So I'll end the poll. And yes, there are some youth. There are people who feel youth, and yeah, there are 3 rangers here or responsible for environmental education. So good to have them here. And in terms of why you choose this workshop, I see, yeah, at least you have some ideas of what are we speaking about, and yes, you have probably some of you have something to share. So good to get some news from you, and hopefully you'll hear something interesting from the case studies we will present very shortly. So I'll close this. So I would like to introduce, first of all, Katie Foxford from the Yorkshire Dales National Park. She's waving up there, and she's been involved in many of the activities with EUROPARC and the Youth Manifesto and others, our workshops and conferences in the past. So happy to have her here, and yeah, good to hear from her experience. So up to you, Katie.
Okay, I'll just screen share my presentation. Okay, can everyone see that all right? Brilliant. Okay. So I'm pleased to have been given this opportunity to speak to you today about the implementation of the Youth Manifesto and the ways in which the Yorkshire Dales National Park are engaging with young people. So to introduce myself, my name is Katie Foxford, and I started working for the Yorkshire Dales National Park Authority as a communications apprentice back in 2017. Since then, I've progressed to tourism support officer. After studying countryside management at Harper Adams University, I became interested in communications during my placement year with the National Trust and took the apprenticeship in order to gain experience in this area. I've been living and working in the area for the past 3 years, and I've come to realise some of the many problems facing young people living in rural areas. So these are just some of the issues facing young people wanting to live and work in the Yorkshire Dales National Park, and which make it difficult for employers to attract young people. So these go from affordable housing, which is the major problem, broadband reception can be poor, the cost of living is higher in rural areas, and a few large employers, many jobs are part-time and seasonal, and these are just a few of many of the issues. But the 2 main issues that crop up time and time again are a lack of well-paid jobs and a shortage of affordable housing. These are just 2 of the many obstacles facing young people living in the Dales. So a large number of second homes in the Dales is a particular problem, driving house prices up and out of reach of many young people in the area. The housing problem is compounded by the lack of well-paid jobs and the higher costs of living which come with living and working in a rural area. A recent report indicated that 1 in 3 homes in the Yorkshire Dales National Park are second homes. This is equivalent to 31% and compares with a figure of only 7% nationally. In 1981, there were 3,500 council houses from a total stock of around 9,500, and now there is only 300 from a total stock of 10,500. I currently live in rented accommodation in a small town about 30 minutes drive away from the office, and I chose not to live nearer to the office for a number of reasons, including the lack of availability of reasonably priced rental accommodation and few amenities and social activities in the small village where our office is based. So the Youth Manifesto is part of a much bigger picture here in the Yorkshire Dales. The Yorkshire Dales are in a real crisis with regard to retaining and attracting young people, and it is recognised that the Youth Manifesto can play a crucial role in tackling this. Whilst the extent to which the migration of young people from rural areas is a problem may vary from the north and the south of the country, it remains a national and a global issue. In order to show the extent of the problem of youth migration in the Dales, I have included this chart showing the age profile of Dales residents, shown by the red bars, compared with the national age profile, shown by the grey bars. The chart shows the disproportionately high percentage of Dales residents in the older age groups compared to the situation nationally in England and Wales. And almost 60% of the total Dales population are aged 45 and over. This compares with only around 40% nationally. Young people are leaving rural areas such as the Dales in large numbers, and older retired people are moving in. So to give a bit of background to the Youth Manifesto, the Youth Manifesto was launched at the EUROPARC conference in the Cairngorms National Park to around 500 delegates in September 2018. The manifesto is a call for change. It's a source of ideas and inspiration for decision makers in protected areas and rural communities to ensure the involvement and empowerment of young people, with the aim of creating a vibrant future for them, for nature, and for our rural areas. It is a tool that the Yorkshire Dales National Park are using to help retain the area's young people and attract more to move in amid concerns over the future sustainability of Dales communities. So myself and my colleague came back feeling very inspired by the launch of the Youth Manifesto and the positive response it received. On our return, we went through the National Park Management Plan and identified areas where the Youth Manifesto could be applied to the work of the authority. The management plan is the single most important document for the Yorkshire Dales National Park, and it sets out the vision for the park and how a range of organisations, including ourselves, should achieve this over the next 5 years. We made a presentation to the full staff meeting to create awareness and understanding of the Youth Manifesto and asked staff to consider how they could help to implement the manifesto through their work. This was very well received, with staff expressing a keen interest in supporting the aim of the manifesto. Following the conference, David Butterworth, our Chief Executive, decided to take a formal approach to implementing the Youth Manifesto and asked our members to vote on the paper at the National Park Authority meeting. Members voted unanimously to adopt the EUROPARC Youth Manifesto and give detailed consideration over the next few months to the 27 actions within it. Our CEO was keen to ensure that the Youth Manifesto was not a standalone separate document, but that it was a working document that was directly linked in to the work that the authority does. 27 action areas of the manifesto were observed, and department heads were asked to consider what might we already be doing to deliver the action or part of it, and what more might we do in future. As the manifesto is a broad document, it cannot be applied in its entirety to one organisation. Therefore, we selected specific action points where we felt we could make a difference. But it's not just about agreeing to a paper, it's about taking action. So my colleague and myself decided to set up something more practical, a youth forum. So a youth forum was set up internally for apprentices and under 30s in the authority, aiming to create a space for the younger people to meet up and connect, have fun, learn a new skill, find out about a different department, explore a different area of the National Park, and as a vehicle to allow our voice to be heard. One of the aims of the Youth Forum is to help to broaden the experience of an apprentice to ensure transferable skills can be gained in different areas so they are in a better position for a job once the apprenticeship comes to an end. Our hopes for this are shown through our objectives, and our objectives stem from the Youth Manifesto, such as giving young people a voice and a chance to make decisions. Whilst the social aspect is important, there has to be more substance, making positive change for young people and engaging them in the consultation processes, which is why the authority is working to get young people's views on the issues surrounding the national park, from climate change to employment to the future sustainability of the park, and to have their say and be involved with the consultation. So here you can see how the Youth Forum is fulfilling the Youth Manifesto. I think the Youth Forum is a great idea, and it's an important way of showing the National Park's commitment to trying to improve rural areas for young people and creating a space for young people to connect. The authority has launched an Attracting Young People initiative in conjunction with district councils, which includes a range of practical steps to try to reverse the trend of young people and families migrating away from rural areas. And the Youth Manifesto adopted by the authority feeds into this initiative. So there are 5 partners currently involved in the initiative, and each partner authority will lead on specific actions and inject £10,000 into the joint £100,000 fund to deliver this. The actions include measures to build more affordable housing, including community-led and self-build housing, improve digital communications, create better jobs, retain and strengthen local services, and promote the area as a place to live. The Yorkshire Dales National Park Authority also commissioned a social, economic and housing study of the park, which showed the need for affordable housing, but also the need to create more 1 and 2 beds, which suit the younger generation, but also suit the older generation who want to downsize, but currently there are few smaller houses or bungalows to downsize to. Although the Lakes and Dales economy is relatively strong, like many rural areas, it suffers from an outward migration of young people. The Lakes and Dales has 44% fewer 16 to 34-year-olds than the national average, which raises significant concerns regarding its future economic and community resilience. The Great Place Lakes and Dales project aims to tackle this problem with various initiatives. This has included holding a flexible housing design competition to attract architects from around the world who could bring new innovative thinking to flexible housing, which will appeal to younger people and draw them to the area. As well as the housing problem, there is a lack of awareness about opportunities available to young people in rural areas. That's why it's important to get these messages into schools about prospects for young people to work in the countryside and be involved in conservation. The Great Place Lakes and Dales project has engaged young people in the authority by creating videos showing them speaking about their work. These videos are designed for use by schools and at careers fairs with the aim of these hidden jobs to be more exposed, as they may not be well advertised or seen to be an option. The authority also employs apprentices and also caters for work placements, internships and externships, and are looking at creating youth ambassador roles within the volunteer department. So there are a lot of projects going on internally within the authority and externally. However, there needs to be a more joined up approach between the various initiatives and even within the authority between departments. It is still early days and nothing will happen overnight, but there is also a lot of planning and ambitions, and it will be interesting to see how long it will take to see action on the ground and visible results. The world of work is changing, and there are significantly more part-time, temporary and short-term contract posts, especially in the authority, which can bring about many positives. However, as a young person who is looking for job security, is not able to plan for the future, buy a house or start a family. Perhaps rather than looking at affordable housing, we should be looking at more and better quality affordable rental accommodation. This would involve a review of the current rental system along the lines of systems in place in other European countries. But this is down to government policy and a willingness to change cultural mindsets of individuals. My personal frustration is that I enjoy the job I do and I love the area where I live and work, but I wonder whether it is as sustainable as a long-term proposition for me and for other young people. I appreciate funding is limited and it can be about making small changes, learning from others and being creative. There are many things that can be done to encourage the retention of young people living in the countryside and to attract more young people to move here. But these all come with their own challenges. For example, job creation strategies and programs, education, skills development and technical training, youth involvement in the community, and financial incentives to live and work in the area. The authority is clearly keen to do what it can to help improve the situation, but ultimately, many of these measures are outside the powers of the Yorkshire Dales National Park Authority, and it would depend on influencing and gaining support of local and national government bodies. There is also the question of where the responsibility lies for bringing about these changes, and that's why partnerships and collaborative work is so important. Looking forward, can protected areas pave the way to make the countryside a more appealing place for young people after the pandemic? For example, the newfound affection many have found for nature during the pandemic, be it the escape and solace found by those who could access the countryside on their one walk a day, or the craving for the outdoors from someone trapped in an apartment in the city. Data from our visitor surveys conducted over the summer show that more young people are visiting the park, and this presents an opportunity for the National Park to better engage with young people. It has also been reported that rural estate agents are dealing with an influx of people wanting to move from the city to start a new life in the countryside. Following this, how can we use the opportunities that have arisen as a result of the pandemic to make these protected areas more viable for young people to live and work? For example, how things are never going to go back to how they were, and how we can rethink how things can be done differently in the future, using technology and green tech available now to create a new normal. For example, many people will become unemployed, presenting an opportunity to re-employ them in the countryside or housing sectors or green industries. If there will be more working from home, which might appeal to many young people and those with young families, how can we, as a protected area, make living in rural areas a more viable option? I hope I have given you some idea of the issues facing young people living and working in the Yorkshire Dales and the challenges rural employers face in attracting young people to work for them, and some of the initiatives being taken to help solve these problems, such as the Youth Manifesto. Thank you for listening.
Can you stop sharing screen?
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah, thank you very much for this. And yeah, we can clap. Yeah, I think you brought already several points for the discussion, and I think introduced also the Youth Manifesto, which has been a long process and project in which many have been involved and led by the Kingdom's National Park with other organizations and EUROPARC together. So we might have a chance to go deeper into that afterwards, and your experience and the experience of the park with your personal touch, is what we were looking at. So please, anyone want to comment or has questions to Kathy? Take your chance. Just raise your hands or make yourself visible. Hendrik.
And Alan Smith.
Thank you. Somebody
And then Alan, sorry. Yeah.
Somebody must be the first. Well,
Yeah.
let me, yes, let me introduce me first. I'm Hendrik Oosterveld, president of the Dutch National Parks Foundation. And I feel very familiar what the youth want to do in the parks. As Laura Peters, she is also in here, knows she brought, and I was with her and some colleagues of Laura, the Youth Manifesto to our Minister of Nature in the Netherlands. And she was very happy with this manifesto. And I have promised that we in the Dutch National Park will do more for the younger people. So I have to learn this afternoon a lot, I hope. And I thank Kate for the inspiring introduction. It was very clear, but still I have some questions. And I can tell you I was 20 years ago very inspired by the Yorkshire Dales. I visited Yorkshire Dales in that time, and it gave me a lot of inspiration how to build the Dutch National Park, the Drentse A. So it was a good example, and 10 years later I was again there, so it's a very nice region. Thank you. You told me, Kate, that one of the things you want to reach is giving young people a voice. And you had some hesitations about what you did reach, but I think you should be very proud of yourself. What you inspiration is over there. I have two questions. The first is, how are you organized in the national park? Is there a group of younger people? How is the connection with the, I don't know, how do you call it, the board of the park? How does it work? And secondly, you told you want more a joint approach. Can you give more about this last item? What do you want exactly? So these two things, how is the organization, how are you organized, and what's the more joint approach? Thank you, Chair.
So yeah, the Youth Forum is part of the authority. There's a group of about 15 of us, yeah, that was set up a couple of years ago, and sort of organise social activities and days out for the members involved to just get a better experience out of their apprenticeship. In terms of the connection with the board, that we presented to the authority meeting, so the board are aware of the group and what our intentions are. But in terms of having input into those sort of meetings, not much progress has been made on that side of things so far. We're trying to sort of find a way that we can have nominate sort of a youth ambassador to go and attend these meetings and sit on the board, but it's still being looked into. So that's an area that we need to work on better, really. And with the other question about sort of having a more joint up approach, this the head of park management is sort of looking into that. There's lots of good work going on in all the various different departments. So we've got the Youth Forum and the Volunteers Department looking at having youth ambassadors, and then all the work, the collaborative work that we're doing with the district councils. And it's hard to measure, I guess, the effectiveness that this is having and the impact that the authority is having when it's all going on in all these different places, but it's not very joined up. So yeah, that's still work in progress.
Thank you, Kathy. And Alan from the Cairngorms National Park, who's been involved in the manifesto. Something to say.
Thank you very much, Federico. Afternoon, everybody. Yeah, thanks, Katie. It was great to hear that. it's really good to hear the manifesto still being used and sort of thrown about, because we put an awful lot of work into that a couple of years ago. It seems like a lifetime ago now. And I think anybody out there who's thinking about creating some connection or engagement project with their young people it's a really good starting point. And it might well be something that we can think about republicizing and putting out there again, I think, because post sort of COVID and the recovery stuff, there's a lot of things in there which are very useful. So I think that'd be a really good thing to start doing again, is to sort of raise its profile. So it's good to see the manifesto being used. But Katie, the question I had for you was just thinking about, you mentioned that there was a survey done, and that after that survey, then the Yorkshire Dales are looking at better ways of then engaging with young people, and whether or not there'd been any ideas that come up from that, because certainly it's changed the scene really, because with our work with young people in the past, it's always been about getting together and coming together in groups and sort of doing things in exchange, and that of course is really difficult at the moment. So I wonder if in the Yorkshire Dales you've come up with any ideas of ways we can better engage with young people in these sort of strange COVID days.
Well, I think something that I've had discussions about this already, but it's sort of been hit on the head a little bit because of funding and time. But it's sort of creating a survey to find out what the young people in the local area actually need and want from the National Park Authority, and what they think about living and working in the national park, and whether they actually think it is sustainable for them to do that, and recommendations from them on what they think can be changed. And I think having that evidence from young people and knowing what they need and want would better advise the national park on which direction to go. And also that's a way that we can engage with young people, but without having to have these gatherings as well. So that's something that I have suggested, and I don't know whether that's something that EUROPARC could maybe get involved in, with creating some sort of uniform survey whereby any protected area can use that to find out the needs and wants of young people in their area.
Yeah, we are collecting ideas, so and we'll need support to do things. So yeah, sure.
If I could just come back on that, that'd be great. Yeah, thanks, Katie. That's really useful, because I think also when we were looking at the Youth Plus program, part of that is that a European network of young people, which would be ordinarily, I think we thought about that would be an online portal, and I think now might well be the time to really ramp that up a little bit. And that's the main way now that young people, all of us are actually sort of communicating across sectors and across countries. So that might well be something that we can sort of pick up again on via the youth program, the Youth Plus program, Fed.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll comment to the Youth Plus after. I don't know if anyone else has a comment or question for Katie. I have one. So I see you mentioned that there are many of the challenges and the actions are not only for the park to take on board, and the responsibility of the park is not necessarily on housing or on other areas of work. So how the park is dealing with this, and I think this is a challenge I see in general for protected areas at European level when we speak about so many things. And are we not expecting too much from the protected areas? I'm provocative here. And are we in a position, are the protected areas in a position how they deal with all those expectations or needs that they're facing? So how, for example, your protected area, your park is dealing with those aspects in relation to the rest of the landscape or other authorities?
Well, first, I think there's a lack of understanding from a lot of people in the area on who is responsible for these different areas. For example, transport's a big one that we always get pulled up on what we can do better to create more transport options for young people. But yeah, we at the Yorkshire Dales National Park, there's a lot of collaborative work going on with the district councils, and all the councils have put money into this funding pot to try and create better housing and better transport facilities for young people. I think it's just creating awareness of this in the work that we're actually doing, because there's a lot of good work going on as well.
Thank you. Robert Kane, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Sure. I was just thinking about Katie mentioning surveys being used, and then Alan saying that groups of young people were more useful. And I would say like they both have their merits, but sometimes, especially when you're sort of just coming out of school and deciding whether you want to stay in the park and work, young people don't necessarily know the solutions to the problems they're facing. So they might know some of the problems that they're facing, but a survey can only sort of, when it comes to finding a creative solution for young people by young people, the best way of doing that is to get them all together in a group and to start sharing ideas. And a survey doesn't necessarily achieve that.
Yeah, good point. Thanks for that. Okay, if you don't have any burning question, I'll move on. And we just mentioned Junior Ranger. No, we didn't mention Junior Ranger. You mentioned Youth Plus. And the Youth Plus is a program that has been launched by EUROPARC to respond to one of the demand of young people, and is a way to respond to the Youth Manifesto from a EUROPARC perspective, try to engage with and involve actively young people aged between 18 and 25 all over Europe in protected areas. So a quick question for you. Okay. Some uncertainty, I see. Do you see the results live? No? Okay. So I see 3 haven't voted. I'll close the pool. Okay. So those are the results. So what are the key components of the Youth Plus program, in your opinion? And the right answer is communication, advocacy, leadership, and nature conservation. Those have been agreed as the key pillars of the Youth Plus program. And yes, I think, yes, for sure, biodiversity and leadership, it was a tricky one. Yes, you can find, I'm not going deep into the Youth Plus program. We can explain more later if you want, and otherwise it's on our website for those curious. and Laura might say something more afterwards. And close the pool, and I'm happy to introduce the next speaker, which are actually two speakers doing this jointly, and from the north of Italy at the border with Slovenia. It's Carolina and Nicola, who are from the park of the Prealpi Giulie, and they are in the board and the youth board of the park. So up to you for your intervention.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So I am Carolina, and I am the spokesperson of our Youth Advisory Board.
And I'm Nicola, and the spokesperson deputy of the MIB Reserve.
And we are from the reserve of the Julian Alps in Italy.
Before to talk about the main topic of the Youth Advisory Board, I want to spend some minutes to talk about our place. We come from the northeast of Italy, in a region called Friuli Venezia Giulia, and we live in one of the 6 municipalities of the Julian Prealps Nature Park. Our land is I like to talk about it as a little piece of heaven, because we live in an ideal big region, transboundary region between Carinthia in Austria, Slovenia, and Friuli Venezia Giulia. And this diversity is a mix between the 3 different areas, because we live in the mix between the Alp region, the Balkanic region, and the Mediterranean region. So we live in a full of biodiversity land. But our land is not only full of biodiversity, it's full of human diversity, because we can say in each valley has its own traditions and culture. And in this area, we find one official language that is, of course, Italian, but 2 minority languages, the Resiano and Friulano, and each valley has its own dialects. Depends of someone comes from the Slavic idioma, some others from German languages. Thanks to all this diversity, and thanks to the will of the park and the municipalities, the Julian Prealps Nature Parks 3 years ago became bigger, because we achieved the recognition of, we became one of the main and the biosphere reserve promoted by the UNESCO. What is a MIB project? Its purpose is to promote a balanced relationship between human beings and the environment through the protection of the biodiversity and the good practices of sustained development. And now Carolina will talk about our values and purposes.
Well, our Youth Advisory Board is an activity that the youngsters can keep doing after taking part in the Junior Ranger project, and also with Youth Plus, both promoted by EUROPARC. And always our board was born before the writing of the Youth Manifesto, which Katie explained before. It is a source of ideas and inspiration for decision makers to involve and empower young generations from rural communities, as we are from rural communities. And another thing is that our Youth Advisory Board is not a volunteering association of youngsters, but it is an official consultative body of the park. And so we have our own voice, and we are part of the Rule of Action Plan. And another thing, we do not work for the park. but we are just, as I said before, a consultative body. In our board, there are 27 young people from 16 to 30 years old, and we are all from the 11 municipalities of the MAB reserve. And a special thing is that everyone has got his own skills and passions, which are really various. But the common one is that we all care for our territories, and we are all active citizens of our territory. And now there are our values. First of all, we aim to the awareness and active participation of youngsters in the active life and society of the reserve. Also, we would like to learn as a process of continued improvement of knowledge and abilities, also through the promotion of our cultural heritage in all its form. We also aim to promote cultural exchanges and also in local zones, but also with an international brand. And we also actively contribute to the writing of youth projects, always aiming to the involvement of youngsters in our activities. And now our purposes. After playing a consultative and proactive role into the decision-making process, we also aim to widen the local knowledge of young people and encourage the relation between youth living in the reserve area, but also from all over Europe. For example, we have a strong relationship with Slovenian guys, which are next to us. And we also promote the active participation of young people into territorial activities that we organize, always with a goal to bring youth people close to the reality of the reserve. And now Nicola is going to introduce what do we do in concrete for our reserve.
We organize different events. One of them we tried for the first time last year is Nature Beats. Nature Beats is a day organized from young people to the young people. And in a sort of way is a mix between music, fun, and active citizenship. And the event takes place in an informal context, and we decided to organize it in a really frequented area, quite far from the most touristic areas. Also for give a dignity to the most rural locations of our reserve. And after that, one of the main values is that the event has to be eco-friendly. Eco-friendly are not only the activities such as yoga, stone balancing, e-bike tours, or something activities like that, but also eco-friendly in food and dishes and what do you need for it also. And in a certain way, we are also proud to use biocompost toilets and not the chemical ones. Okay, after that, what are the purposes? What we do in concrete in this during this day? We give the possibility to young people to go up on a stage and talk about their passions and what they do with their projects. For example, last year we hosted the youngsters of the local Fridays for Future Association that they obviously talked about global warming and what the young people can do in concrete to fight the climate change. After that, we hosted the youngsters from the blog For dal Comune that could be translated out of the municipality, and what is their purpose? They promote the knowledge of the territory and they raise the awareness of what active citizenship is. And where is the music in this part? One of the most important activities during the day is to go for a music hike where a young and a local sing-song maker sang and played songs in our local idioma called Friulano also. And at the evening, then we had a party with local bands to share fun and the happiness of the day all together. Another event we take part is Youth at the Top, and I think most of you may probably know already about it. Youth at the Top is an event organized by EUROPARC, and what can I say? It's a day where the youngsters from protected areas all over the Alps reach the top of a local mountain in a symbolic action. The purposes of this day are to reinforce the idea that we live in a unique and sole alpine region beyond the borders of the nations. And the other purpose is to make stronger the relationship between young people and the nature and the mountain environment. And we usually organize this event with the youngsters of the Youth Plus and the Junior Ranger programs of the National Triglav National Park near Rova, which is next to us in Slovenia. But due to the COVID situation this year, we could not organize with them. And so our Youth at the Top day will be next Saturday. And after some talks about wildlife and global warming, we're going for a hike and then to spend some more time together to talk about what we can do for conservation, the wildlife, during in the future against the climate change. Other activities we promote and we do are some team building for us, because we come from 11 municipalities and maybe don't know each other at all. So we need to form the group and be united as a young advisory board. After that, we organize some outdoor activities for local or not local youngsters, such as bushcraft sessions or survival sessions and stuff like that. And we organize some talks in a sort of way that they are very similar to the TED talks. Probably you know it from YouTube. And we hosted some teachers of the university to talk about global warming. After that, as you can see in this moment, we go to international meetings and workshops to talk about our reality and what our Youth Advisory Board do in concrete for our territory. And what are the plans for the future?
Well, our plans for the future are mainly three, but there are, first of all, we would like to create a youth advisory board of a transboundary biosphere reserve of the Julian Alps with the young people of the Slovenian park next to us, so the Triglav National Park. And next, also, we would like to do a forum where we can organize online meetings and also physical events between Italy and Slovenia. We would like to cooperate with them. Another thing is to create projects for youth inclusion and outdoor educational. For example, we joined the Erasmus Plus project, and also we cooperate with Legambiente, which is an Italian association for the natural conservation. And last, there's the cooperation with other associations and groups, also local groups, to build a network of active citizenship where cooperation and solidarity are the key. Yes, that's all. And thanks for watching.
And here we are for questions.
Thank you very much. Well done. Really, we wanted to give the floor to the youth to present their perspective and their case. So I'm really pleased to hear your experience and also knowing a lot about the park and the history, how things evolve and take time to. So thank you very much for the inspiring words and the great work you're doing there. And I guess there's some comments, suggestions, questions from the audience. Please raise your hands or just jump in, feel free. Yes, Christina.
Hi.
Maybe can you introduce yourself when you...
Yeah. Can you all hear me? Perfect. I'm Christina Winter. I've been a ranger for 5 years now in the Biosphere Reserve in Germany, Schafheide-Korin, and now I'm working for the EUROPARC Federation in Germany. And we are organizing next year a youth forum for the MAB program of the Biosphere Reserves. And my question would be what you suggest of your experience in Italy. How do we reach the young people in the protected areas at the best? Because we already had a youth forum 2 years ago and it was very hard to get to the young people because often the administrations of the protected areas don't have any connection to this kind of young people area. And yeah, I would like to have some recommendations, if it's possible, to what would be the best ways to get to the young people of protected areas to invite them to involve with their protected area.
I think the best way to work is to work with the schools, because if you involve the youngest children, they will grow up with a particular love for their territory and what means be an active citizen. We see this problem also in our area, because a lot of my friends also went away because they thought in this part there's only poverty and not a future. I think the best way is to explain to the youngest people what are the strongest point of living in not only a rural or a poor area, but in a nature area. Because if you take them when they was young, when they are very young, they will be a different teenagers with more awareness to the cultural heritage of their area. And probably also is to organize, to find some young people and make them organize some events or talk about the reality of your MIB reserve, because young people that heard from other young people what are the benefits to live in nature in a MIB reserve is the best way, because they don't listen too much to the adults. I think, and me also, and Carolina too, maybe. I think this is a good idea, I think.
Maybe another useful thing is to be direct and clear. Ask directly what do they want to do? What do you want to do here? Or what can we do for to make you have more fun? We did this thing last week with a group of guys that came and joined the project that we made for our reserve for make discover and make enjoy our reserve. And for example, they told us to make more festivals where they can have fun. For example, also parties. Maybe you can organize a day as we do. For example, like nature beats. You spend a day in nature and then you have fun all together. Always having an eco-friendly vein. And they also suggested us to use a lot of social medias. Use more social medias as possible. For example, Facebook is just for adult people. They suggested to use more Instagram and also Telegram. We were quite shocked. But yes, Telegram and Instagram are the new means of communication to young people.
And just another thing, I think the programs of junior rangers, Yacht Plus, give the best hand to help to find the people, because I knew in this reality of the young advisory board, but the oldest guys and women and girls of the youth advisory board, and also Carolina, they came always from the Yacht Plus Junior Ranger programs. So they started love this live in this area, love to protect nature and to raise a sort of way sustainable development when they was a child.
Mm-hmm.
I hope I was clear.
Thank you for these suggestions.
Maybe Laura, you want to add something?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say thank you very much for these suggestions.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
No, I agree with what they said, and especially use the groups and the young who are already active in areas and ask members if they have any groups. So make use of whatever youth are already there and active and in the area, because they're most likely to want to make a difference and be active as well.
Any other comment, question for? Is your chance. Pete.
Winfred.
Yes.
I guess this might be a daft laddie question, but I was thinking about the discussions this morning about competencies. So I'd be quite interested to know from the two presentations, but also across the experience we have in the group, about the competencies that we need as protected area organisations around this agenda. So that's about skills, knowledge and attitudes. And I think attitude is really quite important here. Katie mentioned her chief executive being pretty instrumental in changing things. That's my experience in SNH as well. And I think Alan will probably say something about his. So yeah, are we clear about the competency framework that we need for protected area managers in this area?
This is a big question. I think we will also investigate this afterwards. But yes, if Katie, you have any thoughts or want to share anything, and then Carolina and Nicola.
Can you repeat, please, the question, because we didn't get it.
I can. I think Katie was going to come in but she's still muted. We discussed this morning.
Because they were not in the session this morning. So.
Okay. So, well, apologies. I guess I'm looking for some views from people about the competencies that protected areas staff need around this agenda. And we heard this morning about skills frameworks, but also knowledge and attitudes. So I'm just wondering about how, in the two parks that we've heard from, what are the things which have made a difference in terms of the individuals that you have been working with within those areas, within those park organizations? Does that explain the question?
Please unmute if you want to.
Yeah, I don't know what it is specifically about the Yorkshire Dales National, but we've just got a very forward-thinking chief executive, and he's very passionate and enthusiastic about involving youth in the work that we do. I think in terms of trying to involve youth better in sort of thinking how we can involve youth in sort of the training aspects and projects, just trying to make it an automatic approach. So whenever a new project comes up, just trying to think how can we involve youth in this process before we even get started. Just yeah, I'm not sure. Sorry, I don't quite understand the question, but
I guess, Katie, what you're talking about there, we would call co-production, and it applies to any group that we're working with now. That I guess conservation practice is moving towards co-producing solutions rather than imposing them. So, but that's quite a step change for our organisation. So I guess there's some competency development needed for us to actually deliver for young people, but also other groups that we want to reach out to.
Yeah, and I don't know if you wanted to add anything, Caroline. Sorry, and then I'll go to, sorry, Kathy.
Sorry, I was just going to say whether there can be specific actions included in sort of job descriptions or in action plans for people to actively involve youth, make it become just a natural part of the process that you engage with young people. So it's not something you have to think too hard about. It's part of the process. I don't know.
Yeah. Carolina and Nicola, do you want to add something? Otherwise, I'll go to Alan. Okay, Alan.
Yeah, thanks, Fed. I think there was a very interesting discussion this morning about competencies, and I did ask Mike about what the thinking is, certainly within EUROPARC and maybe other organisations, about looking forward and seeing what competencies might be needed in the future. Because on a number of the projects we're working on, particularly with engaging people across the national park, you're moving out of the traditional areas of conservation, ecology, and all of those types of things. So that you're moving into sectors and areas of work which aren't the usual things that protected area managers are used to. So there's all sorts of things like facilitation, community development, even looking at the arts and culture, socioeconomic problems, all of those things. So it's a much broader spectrum of abilities that people need, I think, in order to engage young people, because very often the issues that young people are interested in aren't necessarily the ones around conservation and ecology. They bring in all different areas of life and living in a place. So developing that ability to deal across a wide range of sectors is a really key competency for protected area managers in the future, who are very good at what they do, perhaps in their specific field, but having that sort of broad ability to engage with people across a wide range of issues is perhaps something they don't necessarily have.
Yeah, that's a much more complex and wider topic, and that's why I was thinking sometimes we are asking a lot, and to protected areas who are organized in a different way or have a different history. So we're in a changing phase, as we are expecting, and new demand are coming if we're looking at 2030 targets. And yes, I would add also that um, uh, we shouldn't do the youth involvement just because it's trendy or it's nice now. I think it requires a mind change and make sure all the things we do include, as you would include other sectors, would include youth in the process. We cannot have nature conservation, something else, and then youth on a separate box. It has to be spread, and I think that's something that Katie was saying and was coming up also. We need to have, for example, we are trying as EUROPARC to make sure in our projects, whatever the topic is, there is a youth perspective, a youth attention, a youth activities oriented to make sure this becomes really embedded in the organization and not just an extra thing that we do as a plus. Any other thing you want to add here now? I would suggest 5 minutes fresh air, at least from the window, and we straight back here. And I have a couple of questions for you to see and go deeper in the debate, and then we'll try to close a bit before maybe 4:30, so it's not too long, and we're ready for the final session. Okay. So see you in 5 minutes. You stay on the session, don't leave the Okay, everyone, you back? Still some energy? Got coffee? Someone went outside? You've been on Telegram, I guess. You were all deep there. Okay, so I didn't want to interrupt the session, but just I think we needed a short break and just have another question for you. You have heard about Junior Ranger. I guess most of you are familiar with the Junior Ranger program, which has been a start, and the Prealpi Giulia and Triglav National Park were among the starter in many years ago. Now, about 20 years ago, the Junior Ranger program started, and yes, some of us are involved actively in the program, have been involved in that. And I hope many of your parks are running the Junior Ranger program as a chance to start involving young people from 12 till 18 years. And it's been quite successful. And if we within EUROPARC have such a good active network of youth today, is also because there's been a lot of work with youngest in the previous years. So it's an investment if you want to have active youth, as in the Prealpi Giulia, for example, as many of them, as they have said, been through the Junior Ranger program. Those are initiatives that help you to engage people and find them, discover them, identify who's interested in what we are doing. But do you know what have we adopted as the Junior Ranger slogan? So what's the Junior Ranger slogan? Yes, here you were right. Explore, learn, and take care. And I guess Carolina and Nicola are familiar with this because we took it from the Prealpi Giulia Junior Ranger, and it's quite a nice summary of what the Junior Ranger is and gives an idea of an educational progression from exploring, learning, and then taking responsibility for nature and be active for nature conservation. So yeah, it's not sing, dance, and drink. I'm sorry. Okay, that was for the fun. I know someone was concerned about making sure there is fun in our activities, and that's an effort we're making, and we like to have it. It's not really an effort. It's an effort to not be to be serious sometimes. So I'll come back to some of the questions we had prepared for the discussion. Just to remind us that the workshops we always have at the conference are also made to try to gather ideas for action, not just chatting workshops, which are nice, but also try to see how the ideas we share can inspire our respective role and how we can inspire action into our work tomorrow. So in terms of objective, what do we want to achieve when we speak about youth involvement? What is our what can we anticipate arising from a better involvement of young people in protected areas? Why? What do you want? An easy question. No? Just jump in, no? Don't be shy.
I guess an increase in diversity and more interest in living and working in the protected areas, and more interest in learning about the natural environment and wanting to be involved and consulted on matters relating to it, if they've got a better understanding of it.
Don't be shy. Yeah, I see Pete saying new ideas, energy, relevance. So, and I think an important point, Marianne is raising, youth are the future. So yeah, it's the future of our landscape, our communities, and in most of Europe, protected areas are living landscapes. So we need communities to contribute to the future and maintaining the biodiversity and the landscape as we would like to have it for 2030, for example, and longer, possibly. Sure.
I can jump in there.
Sorry. Yes, please. I see you. I see Christina saying something.
Sorry.
And Neil.
Yeah.
Raising. Go on.
I think key for me is that, you know, people and nature and land and protected areas are linked completely, and the future of one depends on the other. And if we're not going to make it possible for young people to make their living and live and work and bring up families in protected areas in the countryside, and they're leaving, then both things are going to suffer. People are going to suffer, and the protected area and their nature in those places are not going to have the stewards and the people looking after it that we need for the future. So it's all about both of them thriving together for the future. So their sort of futures are interlinked, and the more we can help with that, the better in protected areas.
Thank you. Yeah, Neil, you wanted to...
Yeah, hi, Federico, and I'm from the Yorkshire Dales as well. I've just taken over quite recently as the chair of the Yorkshire Dales National Park, where Katie's from. And, you know, I'm keen to work with both Katie and with David on, who is our chief executive, on getting young people more involved within our national park. But I think what's really important for me is that we actually involve young people in the decision-making process of the national park, and actually get young people to influence the direction of travel of the national park. I think that's absolutely critical. I mean, what we've got at the moment, and this isn't meant to be in any way unkind, but it's where we're at the moment. I'm one of the younger members. I'm no spring chicken, and so basically you're just completely missing out on about 30 years of the demographic of the population of the park by not having young people involved. So I'm just not sure how we can go along with protected areas, or particularly our protected areas. And I think it's the truth for certainly a lot of the English national parks, where older, usually white, usually male people are making the decisions, and as I say, just missing out a whole demographic of people who are living and working within the national park. And I think I'm really keen to work with Katie and with David on trying to correct that and trying to get young people influencing where we're going as a national park, and hopefully that's the same in a lot of the other UK national parks.
Yeah, thank you. Very good point. Yeah, we need them to be involved in the decision-making processes, and that's what we are also doing within EUROPARC. Maybe I'll then give later the floor to Laura also to say a few words about her experience into this sense. Does anyone else want to add something? I don't know, Christina, you want to raise something else? I might not see all your hands up, so.
Yeah, just wanted to say that we always, as working as a ranger, we always realize that there are so many people in our protected area that don't even know that they live in a biosphere reserve. So we really have to start, or we had to start our environmental education work at the bottom line, more or less. And as we talked before also with Carolina, it's one step to go to the kindergarten and the schools, but it's also those people who already are out of the system where you can easily grab them because they're in one building altogether. It's a very hard thing to reach these people and get them the idea of where they live and what are the goals of this living. And so I think youth it's very important to somehow connect them to the area they live in, and also the natural specialties and also the goals of the protected area. And I think here information and communication from the administration as the rangers is one of the most important things to do.
Yeah. And in this sense, I think from some experience I know is interesting to work also with the schools. So in the sense of working with the teachers, and sometimes we need to involve teachers in the educational program. So do some educational, environmental education with the teacher, so then they can understand the opportunities that the protected area offers for young people and pass the message to their kids. And also, as I think Carolina mentioned, the cooperation with local association networks, organizations, environmental organizations, but not just. There's a Scouts group or other groups which can do their work, but maybe create a link with young people. This is happening in several parks, I know. Laura, you want to maybe add something about your experience briefly and experience within EUROPARC, and some of the, just to share some ideas and experience?
Well, I think only good things come out of young people being involved in protected areas. And I think everyone who has any experience with young people has noticed that. Of course, there are difficulties, but it's definitely worth it. And like was raised several times before, it is needed to reach us, because we will need to take over at some point. So yeah, and I think there are quite a few places out there now who have youth boards or who are making youth boards to make sure people are getting active. And I think personally I am very positive about the Junior Ranger program and the Youth Plus program, because it's just a way for young people to get to know their park, maybe in a not very high level, not a very without obstacle, so to say. So everyone is involved. I'm losing my point, sorry.
Oh, that's fine. And Laura has been through the Junior Ranger program, through the Youth Plus, and has been, she's now the youth representative in the EUROPARC, and we have made within the board, within the Council of EUROPARC, a seat for youth representative now since some years. So this is one of the actions that we have took to make sure there is a youth representation. Obviously, it is a challenge is new also for us as an organization. So when we are looking for ways to improve and making sure that the view of youth can be relevant and can contribute actively to the work of the organization. Ellie, do you want to come into the discussion? Ellie Moore?
Pretty much just what I've written in the chat. Yeah, I noticed that, like I've said there, I was in the agriculture workshop yesterday and there were about 40 people in it. This workshop about young people has significantly less people in it, and just, you know, from knowing a few familiar faces, I know that a lot of us are under 25. Yeah, I wonder if, you know, part of the way of getting young people involved and young people interested is to first make sure that, you know, the people who are in charge of everything. Oh, sorry, my internet's terrible. I've just got a thing saying you probably can't hear me. Yes. Anyway, that's my point. Because as well, I've noticed that, like this morning, something was said when the age poll was done, and it showed that there was very few young people in the group. And, you know, somebody said, oh, they're probably all still asleep. And I mean, I was awake and it was 8:30, and it kind of, I don't know, it rattled me a bit. I was kind of like, you know, we're capable of this. We are here. There's just not many of us because, you know, not many of us are involved in this kind of thing because it's not easy to get involved in this kind of thing. And oh, I had another point and I've completely forgotten what it was. Yes, that was the other thing. I think as well, I found, and I know just from speaking to my own group, a couple of us have found that, you know, like the whole conference is very jargony, and is very, you know, there's a lot, it kind of requires quite a lot of pre-existing knowledge to understand exactly what's going on. And while I think at some level, us as young people have that knowledge because we are interested in this kind of thing, there is still some of it that we do miss just simply because, you know, we haven't been in the industry as long and we don't know everything that's going on. And I just wonder if there's a way around that as well. You know, that might get more young people involved if it was slightly more accessible and slightly easier to understand. Probably gone off on a massive tangent there, but I think that was it. Thanks.
No, thanks for your input, and I think is a very good challenge. I'll give you the floor, Pete. Yeah, and it's true that this conference was meant mainly for the managers, but we are trying to make our best to open it up as much as possible. So I take your point, and we need to improve this for future. And still, we are working to make sure there are different sections where youth can have a voice and opportunities for involvement of youth in specific things. So we might have to be better also in creating opportunities for differentiating the thing. But yes, I take your point. And Pete, maybe you want to add something.
Yes, I guess 2 points in response to Ellie's challenge. And I think the first one, just to flip them around, I'm a great believer in young people speaking to other young people as a means of empowering them and not getting away from the sort of professionalization and the language that we use as older people who are long in the tooth in this business. So yeah, definitely really a powerful way to communicate to young people is to get young people talking to each other. I guess the other point is, I guess, a slight challenge prompted by Ellie's chat thing. To date, the discussion has all been about youth in and around protected areas. And I, as a person in a national organisation, national nature organisation, there's our youth panel gave us a big challenge about, well, that's good, and protected areas need to be doing that. But actually an awful lot of young people in Scotland, and I suspect in many other European countries, live in urban areas, and their access to nature is pretty constrained because they don't have access to nature on their doorstep, or they don't have the travel opportunities. And our youth panel challenged us to think about protected areas in urban Scotland, and also junior ranger schemes in urban Scotland, and in places where we wouldn't normally made those investments. So I think there's quite a big challenge in there about youth in general, which I think is relevant to us as protected area organisations. But so I haven't got a solution to that yet, but I think we need to join up the discussion, that were really good experience and discussions we're having here with some of the discussions we're having elsewhere in EUROPARC around the peri-urban agenda, and also even the Health Commission as well.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. Ellen has raised her hands.
Hi, just following on from Ellie's comment, I am going into my second year at Stirling Uni studying animal biology with a keen interest in conservation. And one of my flatmates is a biologist. And when I told her about this conference and told her that what it was all about, she said, "Oh, that sounds really good. But how did you find out about it?" And the only reason I knew about it is because I'm part of the Cairngorms National Park sort of Youth Rangers scheme. And if you're not part of something like that, there is very, very little or to find out about through the universities. So I don't know if you EUROPARC could tell universities about this kind of thing more often, because they are good resources to have. And obviously if you can sort of immerse yourself in the technology and the terminology from a younger age, you learn it better. And I don't really know what can be done sort of to change that. And I would also like to point out, I've noticed a lot of people going, okay, so we need to get the youths to do this and the youths to do that and the youths to do this. And I completely agree with that we do need to get more involved. But equally, I've applied for a lot of volunteering or a lot of work experience, and either I get told I'm too young, I'm 19 now, so that's less of a problem, or I get told I don't have enough qualification or enough knowledge about the area that I want to go into. And it's really difficult to actually get that knowledge if you've not started anywhere, if you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, on your last point, it was the same when I started, so it hasn't changed much. But yes, we need to create opportunities. And just as we are speaking, there's we every year launch, we have several internship within EUROPARC, maybe not interesting, but in this case, just for you to all to share, we are offering internship opportunities, and we are offering also scholarships for young professionals in protected areas. So every year we offer 3 scholarships with opportunity to visit protected areas in Europe and do some research on different topics. So there's an award being a call for applications being launched every year, something to look at. And yes, I think we need to connect more with universities. That's probably a good link to connect with young people. And I don't think we are just asking young people to do things, but we're here. The core is what do we need? What protected areas need to do to change their attitude, and how we can improve our approach and yeah. Anyone else wanted to add something?
I was just going to say that Yorkshire Dales National Park, I think I mentioned it in my presentation, trying to involve young people in the consultation process of the local plan, which covers sort of topics to do with climate change and housing. And it's actually the communications team are using the youth forum to reach out to other young people that they may know in the area, and asking those young people in the area to asking them what they want their national park to sort of stand for and what they want them to do to make it better for them as a young person. So I guess a lot of it is actively going out and finding the young people as a protected area.
And probably the challenge is also we need to come out of this box. So those here around the screen are those who essentially agree on the relevance of the topic, but we need to try to make sure we reach those who are less aware and decision makers who might change the things. Anything else on this? Otherwise, I'll give you.
There is a
sorry,
question
yes.
on the chat from Marianne.
Please, Marianne, if you want to intervene.
Well, I have the answer on my question already. I think Alan's point about more and better communication with all relevant educations to get more young people on board is very important. But I didn't notice that because I'm a bit older than the youngsters here. So I didn't know there was a special rate, but I understand now there is a special rate already.
Thank you. I might share my last fancy pool, one of my last one. Something we discussed already, partially maybe, on the needs. So okay, all voted. I'll share the results. So seems you don't need necessarily more money, as I expected. It's not involving young people and making sure young people are involved. It's not just really a matter of money, because those can be done relatively on a cheaper level. But surely there's an issue on the support from local authorities and decision makers, and maybe some opportunities to have more knowledge. And this is something that came up. I'm happy to get a bit more if you want to elaborate on what kind of trainings you would need, or do you think would be helpful in order to improve this. And then this connects well with the learning exchange opportunities to look at what is happening elsewhere. So yeah, happy to get some inputs here on the final part.
I would just like to say I am a bit surprised by this poll as well, because often what I hear is we don't have the money to do this, we don't have the hours to put in the time, whereas people are enthusiastic and willing to start work. So yeah, that's just the point I wanted to make. So I see here that a lot of people would have the money but don't know how to start things up.
Please. voters?
I think, Federica, I mean, none of those things really related to my situation at all, because we've already started and got something going. So what we need is less pandemic, which would be really, so a vaccine perhaps might be something that would be really great, because the key thing is the opportunities to bring people together, as Bob was alluding to earlier. And it's the same with them talking about the workshops and everything, is that in order to get more young people along, we need to make something which is attractive to them. I mean, and I think, in 2013 in Hungary, we had sort of the slightly mixed program, which worked really well, where they had their own stuff and then also joined in on the main conference at times. So it's about working out a different format and doing things which does include them. And in the Cairngorms in 2018, we had them fully integrated into the whole program, apart from a couple of occasions. So obviously this format isn't going to work well for that, but I think going forward into sort of the gatherings, that needs to take place right from the beginning of the planning. And then also in response to Marianne's comment about, is there a special rate? Well, there is for this one, but there isn't necessarily always, because that depends very much on the host and their willingness to adopt that pricing structure. So more of a commitment to making it involving young people and the planning of it, so there was stuff in there for them which they can then also share with the wider conference, are the key elements really. So I think there's a mixture of things that we need to have, but we've got the money and budget waiting, and I've got the young people waiting. It's just the circumstances don't allow us to do the things which are going to really interest them and bring them together. Sorry, that was a bit of a ramble.
No, and yes, sorry, the poll is was not made with an ambition to be super. It was a bit for fun and to start the discussion. But yes, I get your point. You're in one of the parks who have started this process from a while and quite advanced in the process. But happy to hear from others who might have knowledge needs or expectations on other areas. And for sure, this conference is a bit special, as you know, and we didn't, for the first year, we didn't manage to have a junior ranger camp. We didn't have the Youth Plus camp, which was expected this year summer. So all those would have probably helped to disseminate and involve more young people and attract maybe make also this program has been put together in quite a special time. So we did our best to integrate a youth perspective in it, but it's not perfect, as you have seen and pointed out. So any other comments while we're getting close to the end?
Yeah, can I add something?
Yeah, sure.
Well, I'm not necessarily to say young anymore. I'm 31 by now. But when I started working in nature conservation in my 20s, I started with a workshop by a Dutch organization called the National Youth Forum. And I want to come back to Laura's comment that it's true, like money is there's always a lack of money. But for example, we got they gathered a group of enthusiastic young people who wanted to do something with nature. Organized a leadership workshop that took 2 days and gave us a budget of €100 each, which is not a super large budget. But the initiatives that came out of that were very diverse and very inspiring. So I think like if you are, and many youngsters do, if you have the enthusiasm and with the right guidance, and that is something that the poll showed that there might be more need for. I think we can get a very long way. But you are right, of course, that there is always a lack of money. We could have done more with €1,000 than with €100. But in the end, there was a lot of, like I said, diverse initiatives that grew out into something that even the UN picked up on. So I think the key is to gather youngsters, teach them leadership, appreciate their initiatives and ideas and guide them in helping those grow. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your inputs. More comments? Energy going down?
Can I say something?
Yeah, for sure.
NL Delta is a new national park. It's not even officially founded yet, and we are trying to make it more known by the people. And we have started a youth community by sending around an application for active youth from all kind of areas, not only nature, but also interested in history, or maybe kite surfers, because you can do that in our area, or fishing, having a fishing hobby, to apply for becoming a NL Delta influencer. And we are in the middle of this application at the moment. So what we want to do is getting about 6 persons from different backgrounds who will be accompanied by 2 park rangers, and getting to know the park and all the things that are happening that are being done on nature development, but also on history, on fun activities in the park. So the idea is that they will communicate about it, and they will explore, and they will be the leaders of a growing group of youngsters, a young community, and we give them a small amount as a fee to keep them really involved to do this job. I hope I'm explaining it all right. I'm not sure whether
you
understand.
Thanks. As we're getting to the end, because I see the last minutes, I don't know, unless you have any final points, maybe Carolina, Nicola, Kathy, you want to add any final remarks? Teresa, I see your hand up. You haven't spoken before, please.
Hi, I just wanted to say that I think there's some sort of a role with careers, in that perhaps careers in nature and tourism aren't seen as proper jobs, and maybe they're not promoted. I don't know how the careers service works with young people these days, but how, you know, we can maybe go into schools and just tell people the range of jobs. Nature Scottish Natural Heritage, you know, we have such an amazing range of jobs, and jobs in tourism are just totally outstanding. Possibly not quite as outstanding since COVID, but you know, the range of opportunities, and certainly with even just promoting things like what you can use different languages for if you're multilingual. You know, you don't have to be a translator, but there's all these different opportunities. I think there's a real just a job to be done there, to, you know, tell everybody what a great how great it all is, really. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, good point. Any final message? Just very short. Yes, Nicola.
I can add something to Teresa's intervention, because I think she's got the point, because this is a problem also in universities, because I studied environmental sciences, and now my work is a natural and outdoor guide. But when you start studying that, my course of bachelor, nobody told me that was also that work, because the nature following is to be a researcher or become a worker in specific areas, such as laboratory or some other works like that. Nobody tells you there are a lot of different work you can do, from to be a ship keeper or some okay, it's okay, from the shipkeeper to work or to be nature guard or an outdoor guide. I think the problem, so not only in the park, is also before.
Thank you, Nicola, for that. Yes, I think we need to raise more the opportunities that are out there without creating fake opportunities, because the lack of job is also in the nature context. But yes, I think there are good messages here. I'm really sorry, but I need to close this session to give you the time to join the other that will start in 5 minutes, and maybe time to breathe a second before joining. So I would like to thank you all again for the active participation and for your inputs, comments in the chat, and also in particular to Katie and Nicola and Carolina for their nice inputs and presentations, and Laura as well, and Michelle, who's been assisting me on this hard job. And it was a pleasure to be with you this afternoon, and hope to see you soon around. And don't miss the last session, because there are big surprises there and some awards as well. Speak to you soon.